The smoke rose from New York's broken towers like black fingers reaching toward the stars. Ambassador Chen Wei stood on what remained of the United Nations building, her diplomatic uniform torn and covered in dust. Behind her, the city burned. The same fires that consumed every major human settlement across Earth painted the sky in shades of orange and red. Chen looked up at the alien ships hovering in the atmosphere. 12 different species made up the hegemony fleet. For 30 years she had tried to talk to them. 30 years of peace offers, trade agreements, and surrender terms. They had ignored every single one. Final transmission beginning, her aide whispered. The young man's hands shook as he activated the communications array. This would be humanity's last message to the galaxy. Chen straightened her shoulders and faced the camera. Across the galaxy, every ship, every station, every world would receive this broadcast. She had practiced these words for weeks, hoping she would never need to say them. To the Hegemony Council and all who receive this message, she began. Her voice was steady despite the chaos around her. I am Ambassador Chen Wei, speaking for the people of Earth and all human colonies. An explosion echoed in the distance. More ships were landing, bringing more soldiers to finish what they had started. Chen did not look away from the camera. For 30 years, we have offered you peace. We opened our worlds to trade. We shared our technology. We offered to join your alliance as equals. You responded with invasion. You destroyed our colonies. You enslaved our people. You called us weak because we preferred words to weapons. The ground shook as hegemony forces moved closer. Chen could hear their heavy footsteps in the building below. They would be here soon. We tried to show you that strength does not always mean violence. We believed that intelligent species could solve problems without war. We were wrong about you. You only understand force. You think compassion is weakness. You mistake mercy for cowardice. Chen paused and looked directly into the camera. Behind her, the last evacuation ships were launching from the spaceport. Tiny lights against the burning sky, carrying the final survivors to safety, to hidden places the hegemony would never find. You wanted to see what humans are really like when we stop being peaceful. You are about to find out. We tried peace. You would not listen. Now you will meet the other side of humanity. The door behind her exploded inward. Hegemony soldiers poured into the room, their weapons raised. Chen did not turn around. She kept speaking to the camera. To any species watching this transmission, learn from our mistake. The hegemony only respects strength. They will take everything you offer and demand more. They will see your kindness as weakness and use it against you. A soldier barked something in his alien language. Chen heard the charging whine of energy weapons behind her. She had seconds left. To the human survivors scattered across the galaxy, remember who we were before this day. Remember that we chose peace first. But also remember that sometimes evil forces you to become something else. Sometimes you have to fight monsters by becoming something they fear more. The soldier shouted again. Chen could feel the heat from his weapon on her back. To the Hegemony Council, you have won this battle. Earth will fall today. But you have made a terrible mistake. You thought the humans you met were all of us. You were wrong. The diplomats, the farmers, the scientists, the teachers, they were our hope for a better future. But we always had another side. A darker side. The side we kept hidden because we wanted to be better than our ancestors. Red targeting lasers danced across the walls. Chen smiled sadly at the camera. You are about to meet the humans we tried not to be. The ones we kept sleeping in the dark places between the stars. The ones we hoped we would never need. They have been waiting for this day. Waiting for the signal that peace has failed. Waiting for permission to do what they were made to do. The soldier spoke in broken English now. Stop talking or we kill you. Chen laughed. You are going to kill me anyway. But that is fine. My death will be the signal they are waiting for. When this transmission ends, they will wake up. And then you will learn why humanity survived every war, every disaster, every enemy we ever faced. She looked into the camera one last time. Somewhere out there, her brother Marcus was watching. Admiral Morrison was watching. General Hayes was watching. All of them asleep in their ships waiting for this moment. We gave you every chance to be our friends. We offered you our best qualities. Our creativity, our hope, our desire to build instead of destroy. You threw it all away. You chose to be our enemies. Now you will meet the worst parts of human nature. The parts we evolved in millions of years of war and death. The parts we tried to leave behind. The energy weapons hummed louder. Chen closed her eyes. We tried peace. Now you get war. Real war. Human war. And we are very, very good at it. The transmission cut off as the weapons fired. Ambassador Chen Wei, humanity's greatest diplomat, died as she had lived, trying to save her people. But her death was not an ending. It was a beginning. Across the galaxy, hidden ships received the signal. In secret bases built over centuries, automated systems came online. In the cold sleep chambers scattered throughout space, military commanders who had been waiting for decades began to wake up. The hegemony had destroyed peaceful humanity. They celebrated as Earth burned. They thought they had won a great victory. They had eliminated the human problem forever. They were wrong. The humans they had fought were the ones who built schools and hospitals. The ones who preferred books to bullets. The ones who chose to create instead of destroy. Those humans were dead now, burned with their cities and their dreams of peace. But other humans were waking up. Humans who had been trained for war since childhood. Humans who studied death the way others studied art. Humans who had been kept in the darkness for good reason. Admiral Morrison opened her eyes in her sleep chamber aboard the battleship. Humanity's wrath. Around her, 50 other ships powered up their weapon systems. They had been drifting in space for 20 years, waiting for this signal. General Hayes activated his command center on the moon base that officially did not exist. His soldiers had been in training for 30 years, learning everything about every hegemony species. Their weaknesses, their fears, how to kill them. And in the deepest part of space, Marcus Chen, the ambassador's brother who had been reported dead 50 years ago, stood on the bridge of a ship so large it could destroy entire star systems. He watched his sister die on the recorded transmission. Then he smiled. "Signal all Ghost Fleet units," he ordered. "Phase 1 is complete. Begin Phase 2. Show them what humans really look like when we stop pretending to be civilized." The hegemony had wanted to see monsters. They were about to get their wish. 6 months after Earth burned, the hegemony thought they had won the greatest victory in galactic history. The human problem was solved. Their colonies were empty ruins. Their ships were scrap metal floating in space. Their home world was a dead rock circling a yellow star. Commander Vex of the Kethvar warrior caste stood on the bridge of his battleship, watching his crew celebrate. They had just finished dividing human territory among the 12 hegemony species. Rich worlds with good soil and clean water. Mining systems full of rare metals. Strategic positions perfect for military bases. "The humans made it easy for us," Vex told his officers. "They were weak. They talked too much and fought too little. They deserved to die." His communications officer looked up from her station. "Sir, we are receiving a distress call from Kepler Station. They say unknown ships are attacking." Vex laughed. "Probably pirates thinking they can steal human technology. Send the patrol squadron to deal with them." 3 hours later, the patrol squadron was gone. No wreckage. No escape pods. No final transmissions. They had simply disappeared. "Send a full battle group," Vex ordered. He was not laughing anymore. The battle group found Kepler Station intact but empty. Every hegemony scientist and soldier on the station was dead. The attackers had been precise and efficient. No unnecessary destruction. No random violence. Professional work. But the strangest thing was the ships still docked at the station. They were human designs, but unlike any human ships the hegemony had ever seen. These vessels were painted matte black. They had no diplomatic markings, no civilian identification codes. They looked like weapons designed by predators. Admiral Morrison walked through the corridors of Kepler Station, her boots echoing on the metal floors. Her soldiers moved behind her like ghosts, checking every room for intelligence. They wore black armor with no national flags or unit insignia. Their faces were hidden behind tactical masks. Morrison stopped at the station's main laboratory. The hegemony had been studying captured human technology here, trying to understand how to use it. Now the lab was empty except for bodies and broken equipment. "Status report," Morrison said into her communicator. "All hegemony personnel eliminated," came the reply. "No survivors. No witnesses. Research data destroyed. We found detailed files on human technology and biology. They were planning to use our own inventions against human survivors." Morrison nodded. The hegemony had made another mistake. They thought the technology they captured from peaceful human colonies was all humans could build. They had no idea what military technology looked like. "Begin Phase 2 transmissions," Morrison ordered. Across hegemony space, every ship and station received the same message. The transmission showed Morrison standing in Kepler Station's command center. Behind her, hegemony bodies were stacked like firewood. To the Hegemony Council, Morrison began. Her voice was calm and professional, like a teacher explaining a simple lesson. I am Admiral Sarah Morrison of the Human Ghost Fleet. You killed our diplomats, so you will deal with our soldiers instead. She gestured to the bodies behind her. You have been studying the technology from our peaceful colonies. You thought you understood human capabilities. You were wrong. The humans you destroyed were farmers and scientists and teachers. We are something else entirely. Morrison pulled out a data pad and read from it. Kepler Station personnel, 437 hegemony citizens. Military value minimal. Scientific value minimal. Threat to human survivors eliminated. Time required for operation, 6 hours. Human casualties, 0. She looked directly into the camera. You wanted to see what humans are really like. These bodies are your first lesson. We are not the species you fought before. We are not interested in peace talks or surrender negotiations. We are not going to warn you before we attack. We are not going to show mercy to prisoners. Morrison dropped the data pad and stepped closer to the camera. You made us this way. For 30 years, our diplomats begged you to stop killing our people. You laughed at them. You called us weak. You said we were cowards because we preferred words to weapons. You taught us that mercy is weakness. She smiled, but there was no warmth in it. Lesson learned. From now on, every interaction between humans and the hegemony will be a military action. You will not receive warnings. You will not receive quarter. You will not receive burials. Morrison turned and walked toward the camera until her face filled the screen. Phase 1 was reconnaissance. We wanted to see how you fight when you think you are safe. Phase 2 begins now. We are going to show you how humans fight when we stop pretending to be civilized. The transmission ended. Across hegemony space, military commanders looked at each other with growing fear. This was not the species they had destroyed 6 months ago. These humans moved like professional killers. They spoke like machines designed for war. On the bridge of his battleship, Commander Vex stared at the blank screen. Send a message to High Command, he ordered. Tell them the humans are not extinct. Tell them something else survived. Something worse. But High Command was already getting reports from across their territory. Human ships were appearing everywhere, hitting targets with surgical precision. Military bases, research stations, supply depots, communication arrays. Always the same pattern. Fast, efficient, deadly. The strangest part was that these humans never tried to capture territory. They would destroy a target completely, then disappear before reinforcements arrived. They seemed to know exactly where hegemony forces would be and how long it would take for help to come. General Hayes monitored the operations from his secret base on Luna. The moon had been declared destroyed along with Earth, but the base was hidden deep underground. For 30 years, his intelligence teams had been mapping every hegemony installation, learning their patrol schedules, identifying their weaknesses. First wave reports, an aide announced. 47 targets eliminated across 12 star systems. Enemy response time exactly as predicted. No human casualties, Hayes nodded. The hegemony had made this easy by being predictable. They followed the same tactical patterns they had used for centuries. They relied on the same technology. They made the same mistakes over and over. Begin second wave operations, Hayes ordered. Target their supply lines this time. Let them know we have been watching everything they do. The hegemony was about to learn that the humans they destroyed had been protecting them from something much worse. The peaceful humans had been a shield, holding back the darker parts of human nature. Now that shield was gone. Admiral Morrison returned to her flagship and looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, Marcus Chen was preparing the final phase of their plan. The phase that would teach the hegemony what total war really meant. The humans had tried peace for 30 years. Now they would try the other thing they were good at. The thing they had been trying not to be war. Real war. Human war. And humans had been practicing war for millions of years. The true scope of human preparation revealed itself like a nightmare coming to life. Across the galaxy, installations that had been hidden for decades suddenly activated. Weapons that had been sleeping in the darkness between stars powered up their engines. Soldiers who had been waiting in cold storage for 50 years opened their eyes. General Marcus Chen stood in the command center of Prometheus Station, a base so secret that even most humans did not know it existed. Built inside a rogue planet drifting in deep space, The station had been preparing for this war since before his sister was born. Status report on Ghost Fleet activation, Marcus ordered. 97% of assets now online, his aide replied. 234 battleships, 412 destroyers, 896 support vessels. All commanders awakened and briefed. All weapon systems operational, Marcus nodded. The peaceful humans had built farms and schools and hospitals. The military humans had built this. A fleet larger than anything the hegemony possessed, hidden in places they never thought to look. What about the specialist units? Marcus asked. The Reapers are in position around hegemony military bases. The Shadows have infiltrated their communication networks. The Plague Doctors are ready to deploy biological weapons. The Mindbreakers are standing by to begin psychological operations. Marcus smiled. The hegemony thought they understood humans because they had fought farmers and diplomats. They had no idea what humanity looked like when they stopped holding back. Begin Phase 3, Marcus ordered. Show them what total war means. On the other side of the galaxy, Admiral Morrison received her orders while orbiting a hegemony supply world. The planet below provided food for 12 different star systems. Destroying it would starve millions of enemy soldiers, but Morrison had something better than destruction in mind. Something that would teach the hegemony a lesson they would never forget. Deploy the agricultural virus, she ordered. The virus was a masterpiece of human biological engineering. It would not hurt any living creature. Instead, it would target the specific crops that hegemony species needed to survive. Within weeks, every farm on the planet would be producing food that looked normal, but contained no nutrition. The hegemony would starve slowly, watching their bodies waste away while their stomachs felt full. It was cruel. It was creative. It was completely invisible until it was too late to stop. Meanwhile, the Shadows were infiltrating hegemony communication networks with viruses designed specifically for alien technology. These programs did not just destroy data. They learned. They adapted. They spread from system to system like a digital plague, turning the hegemony's own networks against them. The viruses would monitor military communications and send false orders. They would redirect supply shipments to empty space. They would make hegemony ships fire on their own allies by convincing their targeting systems that friendly vessels were human attackers. But the cruelest part was that the viruses would work slowly. The hegemony would have time to realize what was happening. They would try to stop it. They would fail. They would watch their own technology betray them piece by piece. On the planet Kethvar Prime, homeworld of the warrior species that led the hegemony military, something impossible was happening. Their greatest heroes were dying in single combat against unknown opponents. The Kethvar had always settled disputes through ritual duels. Their strongest warriors were considered gods among their people. But now these champions were being challenged by humans who seemed to appear from nowhere. Captain Lisa Reaper of the Human Special Forces stood over the body of Warlord Thex, the greatest Kethvar fighter in 1,000 years. The duel had lasted 6 hours. Thex had been faster, stronger, and more experienced. But Lisa had been smarter. She had studied Kethvar fighting styles for 30 years. She knew every move, every weakness, every psychological trigger that would make them angry enough to make mistakes. She had turned their own warrior culture against them. "Who are you?" Thex gasped with his dying breath. "I am what you made us," Lisa replied. "You taught us that only strength matters, so we became stronger than you." The Kethvar watching the duel could not believe what they had seen. Their greatest champion, defeated by a small human female who fought like she had been born for war. It was impossible. It was terrifying. It was spreading doubt through their entire military. Across hegemony space, similar operations were targeting each species according to their specific weaknesses. The aquatic Murthani found their oceans poisoned with compounds that only affected their respiratory systems. They could still breathe air, but the water that covered their homeworlds was becoming toxic. The hive-minded Zephyrians discovered that humans had developed electromagnetic weapons that could sever their collective consciousness. Individual Zephyrians trapped without the comfort of their mental links went insane within days. The plant-like Verdani watched their forests burn with fires that only consumed their species of tree while leaving other plants untouched. Their cities, grown from living wood, collapsed into ash while human fires raged around them. Each attack was precisely calculated to cause maximum psychological damage. The humans were not just winning battles, they were breaking the hegemony's will to fight. Admiral Morrison stood on the bridge of her flagship, watching reports flow in from across the galaxy. Phase 3 was exceeding all expectations. The hegemony was not just losing. They were falling apart. "Ma'am," her communications officer called out, "we are receiving surrender requests from 17 hegemony worlds." "They want to negotiate terms," Morrison laughed. "Tell them we do not negotiate with species that refuse to negotiate. Tell them they had 30 years to surrender. That offer has expired." The hegemony was learning what humans meant by total war. It was not just about destroying the enemy's military. It was about destroying their ability to think, to hope, to resist. It was about making them understand that continuing to fight was worse than death. But the most terrible revelation was still coming. The operations so far had been conducted by human military units, professional soldiers doing a professional job. The hegemony was about to meet something much worse. Deep in the spaces between stars, Marcus Chen was preparing to unleash humanity's final weapon. Not a device or a ship or a virus. Something far more dangerous. The part of human nature that had allowed them to survive every extinction event, every predator, every disaster their planet had thrown at them. The part that had let them climb to the top of the food chain and stay there for millions of years. The part that had no limits, no mercy, no conscience when it came to protecting their own. Marcus opened a communication channel to every human ship in the galaxy. "All units, prepare for Phase 4. It is time to show them what we really look like when someone kills our children." The hegemony had wanted to see monsters. They had complained that humans were too peaceful, too weak, too civilized. They had forced humanity to become something else. Now they were going to meet the thing they had created, and they were going to wish they had accepted that first peace treaty 30 years ago. Phase 4 began with silence. For 3 days, human attacks stopped completely. No ships appeared on hegemony sensors. No communication viruses spread through their networks. No biological weapons poisoned their worlds. The enemy had simply vanished. High Commander Zek of the Hegemony Council stood in the war room on their capital world, staring at tactical displays that showed nothing. His advisors whispered among themselves, trying to understand what the humans were planning. "Perhaps they are retreating," suggested General Vorth of the Kethvar. "Our losses have been acceptable. Their terrorism campaign cannot continue forever." "No," Zek replied, his 4 eyes focused on the empty displays. "This feels wrong. They are preparing something. Something final." He was right. Across the galaxy, human forces were moving into position for operations unlike anything the hegemony had seen. This would not be surgical strikes or psychological warfare. This would be extinction. Admiral Morrison floated in space near the Murthani home system, watching the blue-green worlds that housed billions of aquatic beings. Her fleet had been positioned here for weeks waiting for final orders. Now those orders had come. "Deploy the nanophage," Morrison commanded. The nanophage was humanity's most terrible creation. Microscopic machines that could be programmed to target specific genetic sequences. They would spread through water systems like living poison, seeking out Murthani DNA and replacing it with something else, something that could not survive. The Murthani would not die quickly. The nanophage would work slowly, changing their cellular structure bit by bit. They would have time to understand what was happening, time to watch their children transform into something that was no longer alive, time to beg for mercy that would never come. On the other side of the galaxy, Captain Reaper was preparing something equally horrific for the Kethvar. Their warrior culture valued honor above life. They would rather die than be dishonored, so Reaper was going to give them something worse than death. The humans had developed a nerve agent that would not kill Kethvar warriors. Instead, it would paralyze them completely while leaving their minds intact. They would be conscious but unable to move, speak, or fight. For a species that defined itself through combat, it was a fate worse than extinction. "Begin atmospheric seeding of Kethvar Prime," Reaper ordered. Her ships released clouds of invisible gas that would settle into the planet's air supply. Within hours, every Kethvar on the planet would be trapped in their own bodies, aware but helpless. The Verdani faced their own personalized nightmare. Human bioengineers had created a fungus that would consume their plant-like bodies from the inside. The infection would spread through their root networks, connecting every Verdani on their homeworlds in a web of shared agony. They would feel each other dying, unable to disconnect from the collective pain. But perhaps the cruelest fate was reserved for the Zephyrians. The hive-minded species relied on their mental connections for sanity. Humans had developed a way to sever those connections permanently, while keeping the Zephyrians alive. They would be conscious but completely alone in their own minds for the first time in their species' history. The isolation would drive them insane within days. But the humans had also developed drugs to prevent suicide, keeping the Zephyrians alive to experience their madness for decades. Each weapon had been designed specifically for maximum suffering. The humans were not just killing their enemies. They were making them experience every form of horror their species could imagine. General Hayes monitored the operations from his command center, watching as 12 different extinction protocols activated across hegemony space. The data flowing across his screens showed the systematic end of civilizations that had existed for thousands of years. "Sir," his aide reported, "the Hegemony Council is broadcasting surrender offers on all frequencies." "They are begging us to stop," Hayes smiled. "Too late for that. They had their chance to surrender 30 years ago. They chose war instead. Now they get to see what human war really looks like." The Hegemony's surrender offers became increasingly desperate. They offered to give up all human territory. They offered to pay tribute for 1,000 years. They offered to become human slaves. They offered to exile themselves to the edges of the galaxy. None of it mattered. The humans were no longer interested in negotiation. On the capital world of the Hegemony, High Commander Zek watched his civilization die in real time. Reports came in from every system showing the same pattern. Entire species going extinct in ways specifically designed to maximize terror and suffering. "How many do we have left?" Zek asked his aide. "Population estimates show 70% losses across all member species. Military effectiveness down to 12%. Economic collapse complete. Social cohesion failing on every world." Zek closed his eyes. The humans had done the impossible. They had destroyed an empire that controlled half the galaxy in less than 6 months. But worse than that, they had done it with such precision that Zek knew they could have done it any time they wanted. "They were holding back," he whispered. "For 30 years they were holding back. We thought they were weak, but they were just choosing not to destroy us." His aide nodded. "Intelligence reports suggest the humans could have eliminated us completely, within days of first contact. Everything they showed us, their diplomacy, their peaceful colonies, their reluctance to fight, it was all real. But it was just one side of their nature. And now we have met the other side," Zek said. Admiral Morrison stood on the bridge of her flagship, watching the Mirthani homeworlds turn brown as their oceans died. Billions of aquatic beings were transforming into something that could not survive in water or air. They would die slowly, watching their children and their civilization collapse around them. "Ma'am," her communications officer reported, "we are receiving a transmission from the Human Fleet Command. General Chen wants to speak with you." Morrison activated the communication screen. Marcus Chen appeared, his face showing no emotion as he delivered his final orders. "Phase 4 is complete," he said. "Begin Phase 5, leave no witnesses. No survivors. No possibility of recovery. Make sure no species in this galaxy ever makes the mistake of thinking humans are weak again." Morrison nodded. Phase 5 was the end. Total sterilization of every hegemony world. Not just killing the population, but destroying the planets themselves. Making sure that nothing could ever grow in hegemony space again. "Understood, General. How long do we have?" "Take as long as you need," Marcus replied. "We are not in a hurry. Let them know we are coming. Let them try to run. Let them understand that there is no escape from what they chose to become our enemies." The transmission ended. Morrison looked out at the dying worlds below and felt nothing. No satisfaction, no regret, no emotion at all. The humans had become exactly what the hegemony had forced them to become. Perfect killers. Efficient destroyers. Machines designed for extinction. They had tried to be something better. They had wanted to be explorers and teachers and friends to the galaxy. But the hegemony had taught them that the universe only respected strength. So they had become stronger than anyone imagined possible. And now 12 species were paying the price for that lesson. The end came not with a massive fleet, but with a single ship. High Commander Zek stood on the observation deck of the hegemony's last stronghold, watching the small human vessel approach their capital world. Around him, the final remnants of 12 once mighty civilizations waited for death. Less than 1 million beings remained from populations that had once numbered in the trillions. The ship was not a warship. It bore diplomatic markings and transmitted peaceful intentions. After everything the humans had done, they were sending a diplomat. "Sir," his aide whispered, "the ship is requesting permission to land. They say they have a message from the human leadership." Zek laughed bitterly.
"Let them come."
"What more can they do to us?" The ship landed in the capital city's central plaza. The doors opened, and a figure stepped out that made Zek's blood freeze. It was Ambassador Chen Wei, the human diplomat whose death had started this war. But she was different now, scarred, changed. Her eyes held depths of pain that had not been there before. Chen walked through the empty streets of the capital, her footsteps echoing off abandoned buildings. The few surviving hegemony citizens who saw her fled in terror. They had seen what her people could do. They knew she represented something more terrible than any weapon. She entered the government building and made her way to the council chambers. The last 12 representatives of the hegemony species sat around a table waiting for her. They looked like broken dolls, their spirits crushed by months of systematic extermination. "Hi, Commander Zek," Chen said, taking a seat at the table. "You look surprised to see me." "You died," Zek whispered. "We watched you die on Earth. The transmission showed your execution." Chen smiled sadly. "I survived. Barely. I spent the last 6 months traveling through what remains of your empire, watching what my people have become. Watching what you forced us to become." She placed a datapad on the table. "These are the final casualty reports. 11.7 billion Murthani dead, 8.9 billion Kethavar dead, 7.2 billion Zephyrians dead, and so on for all 12 of your species. Total deaths, 94.6 billion sentient beings." The numbers hit the council like physical blows. They had known their people were dying, but seeing the complete scope of the slaughter laid out in cold mathematics was overwhelming. "Why?" asked Councillor Mayer of the few surviving Murthani. "Why did you come here to tell us this? Why not just finish the job?" Chen leaned forward. "Because I want you to understand something. This war could have ended differently. Every single one of those deaths could have been prevented. All you had to do was accept peace when we offered it." She activated a holographic display that showed the timeline of human hegemony relations. 30 years ago, we sent our first peace treaty. You rejected it. 28 years ago, we offered trade agreements. You destroyed our merchant ships. 25 years ago, we proposed joint colonies. You enslaved our settlers. The display showed dozens of peace offers, all rejected. Hundreds of attempts at negotiation, all ignored. Thousands of human deaths that could have been prevented. "We tried everything," Chen continued. "We offered you our technology, our friendship, our loyalty. We begged you to stop killing our people. We surrendered unconditionally 3 times. You laughed at us. You called us weak. You said we deserved to die because we would not fight back." Chen stood and walked to the window, looking out at the dead city below. "So we stopped trying to be what you would not let us be. We became what you forced us to become, and now you see the result. But you won," Zek said desperately. "You destroyed us. It is over. What more do you want?" Chen turned back to face the council. "I want you to make a choice. The same choice you refused to give us." She placed another device on the table. It looked like a simple communicator, but the council knew it was something else. Something final. "This device will transmit a message to every remaining ship in the human fleet," Chen explained. "I can send one of 2 signals. The first signal will order our forces to stand down. The war will end. Your surviving populations will be allowed to live under human supervision. You will never threaten anyone again, but you will survive." "And the second signal?" Zek asked, though he already knew the answer. "Total extinction. Every planet where your species ever lived will be sterilized. Every space station, every ship, every settlement will be destroyed. Your languages will be forgotten. Your cultures will disappear. Your species will become nothing more than entries in human history books." Chen sat down again, her hand resting on the device. 30 years ago, we gave you this same choice. Peace or war. Coexistence or destruction. You chose war. Now I am giving you one last chance to choose differently." The council members looked at each other in despair. After everything that had happened, the humans were still offering them a choice. Even now, at the end of everything, they were trying to find a way to avoid complete genocide. "Why?" Councillor Mayer asked again. "After what we did to your people, why are you offering us mercy?" Chen's expression grew distant. Because if we kill all of you, we become exactly what you said we were. Monsters. And some part of me still remembers who we used to be before you taught us to be killers. She paused, then continued. But I need you to understand something. This offer expires in 1 hour, and if you refuse it, there will be no more chances, no more negotiations, no more mercy. The human war machine we built to destroy you has grown beyond our ability to control it completely. Even I am not sure we can stop it if we decide to finish this. Sex stared at the device. One button to save his people. One button to doom them completely. After all the death, all the horror, all the extinction, it came down to a simple choice. If we accept supervision, he asked, what does that mean? It means your people will live under human law. You will have no military, no weapons, no ships capable of interstellar travel. You will be monitored constantly. Any sign of aggression will result in immediate termination. You will essentially be prisoners in your own space. But we will live. You will live. Your children will live. Your cultures will continue, even if they are forever changed. It is not the future you wanted, but it is a future. The council debated frantically, knowing their time was running out. Some argued for pride for choosing death over slavery. Others begged for any chance at survival. Finally, Zek made the decision that would determine the fate of trillions of potential future lives. We accept your terms, he said quietly. We choose to live. Chen nodded and pressed the first button. Across the galaxy, human fleets received the stand-down order. The extinction protocols were cancelled. The war was over. You have made the right choice, Chen said. The choice we hoped you would make 30 years ago. She stood to leave, then paused at the door. I want you to send a message to every species in the galaxy. Tell them what happened here. Tell them that humanity offered peace first and war second. Tell them that we prefer to build rather than destroy. But also tell them what happens to species that mistake our kindness for weakness. Chen walked back to her ship, leaving the survivors to process what had happened. She had prevented total genocide, but at a cost. Humanity had revealed its true nature to the galaxy. They were no longer the peaceful explorers they had once been. They were something harder, something more dangerous. As her ship lifted off, Chen recorded one final message to be broadcast across the galaxy. To all species who received this transmission, I am Ambassador Chen Wei of Earth. 6 months ago, the hegemony destroyed my homeworld because they believed humans were too weak to defend themselves. Today, the hegemony has ceased to exist as a military power. She paused, looking out at the stars. We tried peace. We offered friendship. We wanted to explore the galaxy together, learning from each other and building something beautiful. That offer is still open to species willing to accept it. But to those who choose war, who see kindness as weakness, who believe that might makes right, remember what happened here. Remember that humanity's greatest strength is not our weapons or our ships or our strategies. Our greatest strength is that we choose peace first. And when peace fails, we are very, very good at the alternative. The transmission ended. Across the galaxy, countless species received the message and made their own choices about how to approach the humans they had once dismissed as harmless. Most chose peace. They had seen what happened to those who chose war. But in the depths of space, human fleets continued their patrols, keeping watch over a galaxy that now understood what they were really capable of when pushed too far. The humans had tried peace. When that failed, they had shown the galaxy the other side of their nature. Now everyone knew that both sides existed, and everyone could choose which one they wanted to meet.